chapter 25, which is called the justice of God. Everybody wants justice or thinks they do, but we better find out what the justice of God is. And in the original edition, this chapter is called the remedy. In the CE, it's called the Holy Spirit's justice. And here we'll begin in the introduction. But in the CE, it starts with section 1, which is framed in holiness. The Christ in you inhabits not a body, yet he is in you, and thus it must be that you are not within a body. So there's some Holy Spirit reason.
Wow. Nobody. I ain't got nobody.
I ain't got nobody.
But the Christ is the wholeness. The Christ is the completeness. The Christ mind is the healed mind. And it knows that it's not a body. It knows that it's not limited.
And it knows that it's whole.
It knows that it's whole.
That's Holy Spirit reason. In other words, he just told you Christ is not in a body, but he's in you. Therefore, you're not a body. What is within you cannot be outside. Why? Because it's in you. And it is certain that you cannot be apart from what is at the very center of your life. What gives you life cannot be housed in death. No more can you. Christ is within a frame of holiness whose only purpose is that he may be made manifest to those who know him not, that he may call to them to come to him and see him where they thought their bodies were. So, we know that the body is a communication device, and basically what we're understanding here is that the body is a communication device to the mind to stop seeing the body and see what the true frame is here. The body is not the frame of the Christ mind, but there is a frame of the Christ mind within perception.
We use this frame as a means of expression of this Christ mind. The body was made for death and to testify to death. Well, now it's got a whole other purpose. And it disappears, and what appears is the frame or a means of expressing the Christ mind or the mind of wholeness, the mind of holiness.
See, the purpose of a frame is to direct your attention, and he'll go into that soon. Then will their bodies melt away, that they may frame his holiness in them. No one who carries Christ in him can fail to recognize him everywhere, except in bodies. And as long as he believes he is in a body where he thinks he is, he cannot be. And so he carries him unknowingly and does not make him manifest. Who's the him? The Christ. And thus he does not recognize him where he is. The Son of Man is not the risen Christ. Yet does the Son of God abide exactly where he is and walks with him within his holiness, as plain to see as is his specialness set forth within his body. So, in perception and separation, we have to be talking about all these apparently distinct issues. We talked about a Son of Man, we talked about a risen Christ, we talked about a Son of God. In this separation idea, they seem to all be different for the purposes of clarification as to what is what. So we know one thing, Son of Man is not the risen Christ. But the risen Christ is a representation within perception of the Son of God. The Son of God needs no representation. But the Christ makes the Son of God manifest, but not in a body.
The Course says that you made eyes to see and ears to hear this body thing, this whole form thing, and made a concept of a self. Well, now what's happening is the mind, as perception is being healed or corrected, you no longer believe what your eyes see or say to you. You believe what vision says to you, because vision is of the Holy Spirit. And vision allows you to not see a body, but to see the Christ. And you respond to the Christ. That's why what used to be an attack from that body that you see out there, when you understand this, it becomes a call for love. It's a call to see me as I really am, not the way I believe that I am. Heal me of my thought of being something that I'm not, because all you are is the Christ.
So we manifested these bodies to exhibit our specialness. No two bodies are the same. No two fingerprints are the same. No DNAs are the same. we made it for specialness, to be different, to be opposite or different than all others. He's going to go into how the specialness is even in itself reinterpreted by the Holy Spirit. And that's how he ended that last sentence. It's plain to see, as is his specialness set forth within his body. The body needs no healing, but the mind that thinks it is a body is sick indeed. And it is here Christ sets forth the remedy. Where's the here? In the mind. His purpose folds the body in his light and fills it with the holiness that shines from him, and nothing that the body says or does but makes him manifest. And there is the proper perception or interpretation of the body in the happy dream in the real world. It does nothing but manifest love, manifest Christ, manifest holiness. To those who know him not, it carries him in gentleness and love to heal their minds. Such is the mission that your brother has for you, and such it must be that your mission is for him. So, it's not that we're so special because we have this understanding. When we look at the body, someone else's body, what appears to be someone else's body, we have to see it correctly interpreted, which is, this body is here to represent and manifest Christ to me. So if it's the stranger in the grocery store, they're not going to be ugly. They're going to manifest Christ. Based on what? Based on my desire. Because that's what I see in perception as the purpose.
And see, there's absolutely no attack in that thought, because fear attacks, love embraces. So if all you can see is love, there is no attack, so there is no fear. Fear is gone now. And love and fear are the two emotions that you have. One was given, the other you made up. And guess which one you made up? Fear.
And so the body, the Course tells us, we made as fear in form, and fear in form is fearful. So we made differences to be different. And if it's different, I can't understand it or understand its meaning, so I'm on a different level because we're not the same. And these bodies and differences and separations are the reinforcement or witnesses to our differences and to our separation. But remember where he's going. The body doesn't need healing. How much clearer can that be? The body needs no healing.
Right.
But the mind that thinks it is a body is sick indeed. So we don't stop at the body, we go to the mind. If you stop at the body, the Course tells you your healing process ends because your mind and the process of giving and receiving with increasing gratitude gets stuffed up because you stopped it at the body and didn't reach out to the mind. So don't stop at the body. All right, now we're in section 1, the link to truth. In the original, this is section 2, called the appointed task. It cannot be that it is hard to do the task that Christ appointed you to do, since it is he who does it. And in the doing of it, will you learn, the body merely seems to be the means to do it. For the mind, capital M, is his, and so it must be yours. His holiness directs the body through the mind at one with him, and you are manifest unto your holy brother as he to you. Here is the meeting of the Holy Christ unto himself, nor any difference is perceived to stand between the aspects of his holiness, which meet and join and raise him to his Father, whole and pure and worthy of his everlasting love. So the Christ mind meets the Christ mind and recognizes the equality of the sonship, and there is no difference because the body's not in the way to reinforce and witness to differences.
And what's happened here is that you have allowed the Holy Spirit to function as the interpreter of what you see now. Where you used to see a fearful side in that body and a threat, the Holy Spirit has reinterpreted that body for the express purpose of expressing the Christ. Because that's what you're doing. That's what your body's for. You will see what you know you're for. If your body is for the purpose of expressing communication, and that communication is love and acceptance, then that's exactly what you see.
Because you can only see sameness, so there can be no opposition to that sameness. How can you manifest the Christ in you except to look on holiness and see him there? Perception tells you you are manifest in what you see. Behold the body, and you will believe that you are there. And every body that you look upon reminds you of yourself, your sinfulness, your evil, and above all, your death. And would you not despise the one who tells you this, and seek his death instead? The message and the messenger are one, and you must see your brother as yourself, framed in his body. You will see your sinfulness, wherein you stand condemned, set in his holiness, that Christ in him proclaims himself as you. So there are your only two options here. You're going to look out and see a body that's going to testify to sin and death, or you're going to look out and see a body that will not stop you from seeing and joining at the level of the mind where you are joined, and see only the Christ. There's no in-between in that.
See, it says, you will frame the body. Well, you're framing your brother's body. Well, how are you framing it? Well, the only framework you have to work with is the concept you have of yourself, which is ultimately death. So you have to see it the way you believe that you are. But framed in the Christ, you will frame your brother in the Christ.
You can only see sin or holiness. That's all you can look out upon in perception. Perception is a choice of what you want yourself to be, the world you want to live in, and the state in which you think your mind will be content and satisfied. So there's the threes. We always talk about Jesus and his threes. That's what perception's doing.
Now see, this is why perception has to be corrected right here. Perception determines this right here. This is the criteria that makes up you being what you believe you are, or recognizing what you really are. So the Holy Spirit has to take perception and heal perception by showing you that fear is not real, that sin don't exist, that you're not guilty, by bringing you into innocence, by bringing you back to perfection as you see your true self. And then perception becomes whole, or nothing but love. So you perceive love just like in reality you know love. See, we know only love. Knowledge knows nothing of perception. But perception can perceive this love and this fullness and then join back into knowledge, because it disappears, because it has no other purpose now, because love is all there is.
So we see the threefold thing there, which is what you want yourself to be. In other words, you think you want to be. You can only be one thing or another. You can either be the Son of God or you can be the Son of Man. That's the only two choices you have. The world you want to live in. So that depends. Do you want this unhappy, unnatural world, or do you want the real world? And the state in which you think your mind will be content and satisfied. And that's based on your decisions. It chooses where you think your safety lies at your decision. It reveals yourself to you as you would have you be. And always is it faithful to your purpose, from which it never separates, nor gives the slightest witness unto anything the purpose in your mind upholdeth not. Perception is a part of what it is your purpose to behold, for the means and end are never separate, and thus you learn what seems to have a life apart has none. And so this is the purpose of perception. It is to see what you have elected to see, to utilize the mind, to lock yourself into your decision.
Right. And that's how mankind, quote, copes with problems, is to perceive it in a way that I can handle it, only giving it enough fear that I can handle. So it's living in this constant turmoil because it's trying to handle this situation rather than being free of this situation.
It says the state you think your mind will be content and satisfied. So we're looking for contentment and satisfaction. And the mind will go there. So everybody gets set at some point in their, quote, life, and this is what I can handle, and I can't handle anything else. Right. This is my salvation. Always remember the old adage, it takes one to know one. If you're seeing sin, the only way you can be seeing sin is to know it takes one to
believe you're a sinner.
Right, to know one. How do I know he's a sinner? I have to be one. How do I know he's holy? I must be holy. Right. It's the only two ways to go. This is how perception works. That was what we made it for, but it's also what it's reinterpreted for. And he says, thus you learn what seems to have a life apart is not. You are the means for God, not separate, nor with a life apart from his. His life is manifest in you who are his son. Each aspect of himself is framed in holiness and perfect purity, in love celestial, and so complete It wishes only that it may release all that it looks upon unto itself. Its radiance shines through each body that it looks upon, and brushes all its darkness into light merely by looking past it to the light. The veil is lifted through its gentleness, and nothing hides the face of Christ from its beholders. You and your brother stand before him now, to let him draw aside the veil that seems to keep you separate and apart. So, again, this is your choice. Are you going to look on the body, or are you going to look past the body? Are you going to look on darkness of the body? What did he call it? It's too dense. What does dense mean? It means it's blocking the light. Or are you going to look at the light? How much light will you look at? Will you look at the spark? Will you look at the ray? Will you look at the golden circle of light? Or would you just look at the golden light of which you share as the universe of God? And so the veil goes. This is where Jesus talked about, I saw the face of Christ. He did this exact thing. I looked past the body to the light within the mind, to the altar of God. Since you believe that you are separate, heaven presents itself to you as separate too. Not that it is in truth, but that the link that has been given you to join the truth may reach to you through what you understand. Father and Son and Holy Spirit are as one, as all your brothers join as one in truth. Christ and his Father never have been separate, and Christ abides within your understanding in the part of you that shares his Father's will. The Holy Spirit links the other part, the tiny mad desire to be separate, different, and special, to the Christ, to make the oneness clear to what is really one. In this world, this is not understood, but can be taught. So there is a place in you of understanding. The Christ in you understands perfectly, but he says that there has to be a teaching, there has to be a link to that reality through what you do understand. And what you understand is words. What you understand is levels of communication. What you understand are lessons. And these lessons come to you. But there's another part in your mind. It's the false part of your mind based on the tiny mad idea, and he calls it here the tiny mad desire to be separate, different, and special.
See, this is where the Christ mind replaces the tiny mad idea. And this is where, in the real world, you enter into the Christ mind of perception. See, perception you perceive in the real world. You haven't returned to knowledge yet. But what you perceive is the Christ mind, or the wholeness, the oneness. All you see is love, and all you respond to is love. Light recognizes light. Darkness sees only darkness. Love sees only love. So, the real world is about the Christ mind, or the healing of the perception, where it can see only love.
That's the key, only. The Holy Spirit serves Christ's purpose in your mind so that the aim of specialness can be corrected where the error lies. Because his purpose still is one with both the Father and the Son, he knows the will of God and what you really will. But this is understood by mind perceived as one, aware that it is one, and so experienced. It is the Holy Spirit's function to teach you how this oneness is experienced, what you must do that it can be experienced, and where you should go to do it. So there's the threes again. So what is he going to teach us here? He's going to teach us how you experience this oneness, what you must do that it can be experienced, and where you should go to do it.
And see, you are perceiving minds as one. It didn't say you were knowing. It says you're perceiving. We're still dealing with perception. This whole course is about the correction, or the healing of perception, that we made to take the place of knowledge. Because perception will have to fulfill its purpose. And its purpose now is to become whole and to see only wholeness.
So faith and belief is still utilized, but not to seeing, but now it's detached from seeing with the body and seeing bodies to vision, which looks past bodies. So we're still in faith and belief, but faith and belief will drop off as surety and conviction and consolidation of this thought comes to the mind.
You actually become aware of yourself as nothing but the light.
You're no longer believing, you're being. All this takes note of time and place as if they were discrete. For while you think that part of you is separate, the concept of a oneness joined as one is meaningless. It is apparent that a mind so split could never be the teacher of a oneness which unites all things within itself. And so what is within this mind, that's capital W, and does unite all things together, must be its teacher. Yet must it use the language that this mind can understand in the condition in which it thinks it is, and it must use all learning to transfer illusions to the truth, taking all false ideas of what you are and leading you beyond them to the truth that is beyond them. So we have to have a teacher. This mind that we believe we are, that we believe those are our thoughts, cannot get itself out of this trap.
No.
Only that which is in the right mind, the Holy Spirit, the teacher, the guide, the it, He can pull us out, can bring us out.
There's a key line here. It says, and it must use all learning to transfer illusions to truth. We don't need to cut anything out or cut anybody out, because the Holy Spirit is using all learning. We made learning so that we could disassociate. Now the Holy Spirit is using all learning to reassociate us with ourselves.
And he says all this can very simply be reduced to this. So what is the Holy Spirit going to bring this all down to? It is this. What is the same cannot be different, and what is one cannot have separate parts. So it leads us back to equality of the sonship, to oneness of the Godhead, the Trinity of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, all the sons within, all their creations within.